Hello, 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 hello. How are you guys on today, this afternoon? I forgot to silence my notifications. I don't know if I can do it while I'm live, so excuse me, IG. Hopefully, there we go. Let's do that. My bad. I should have did this before I went live. I just don't want nobody calling while we live. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Think I got it. How are you today? Where are you joining me from? Where are you joining me from? Y'all let me know. Put it in the comments. Let me see if I can pull up my comments here real quick. Everything should be flowing just right. I think I got it today. Come on, Facebook. Hey. Hey, IG. Hey, Dean Kristen. Hello, thank you for joining. Y'all, okay, so May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I felt like what better way to talk about mental health than to talk about how mental health impacts relationships. So this whole month, we're going to be talking about topics related to mental health and how they impact relationships or how they interact with relationships. So today we're going to be talking about, can a relationship survive mental illness? And I saw this question and I was like, survive? We can survive a whole lot of things. I've never heard anyone say, can a relationship survive mental illness? But I kind of got what the question was meaning. And so we're going to tackle that topic today. But I want to give you a minute to tag someone on in, tag them on in, or hit that share button if you're on Facebook. Share and let them know that we are live and that we are talking about, can a relationship survive mental illness? Now, you want to tag someone on in here because according to statistics, about 50 million people have a diagnosed mental illness. So that means that's a lot of people. And we'll get there and we'll talk about that. But a little bit about me. Before we get started, I'm Dr. Tiffany. I always forget to introduce myself when I start, but I am Dr. Tiffany Ross. I am a trained therapist and a relationship expert, and I own a coaching and consulting agency. And with our coaching agency, we focus on women who are healing and recovering from relationship trauma or traumatic relationships or relational trauma, however you want to put it. But what that means is a woman who has gone through some type of unhealthy relationship, whether it was a toxic relationship, a bad breakup, a bad divorce, or divorce in general, and they're looking for a support. And that's not all inclusive because we deal with people with grief and recovering from grief and, all of these topics that could have impacted you at some point. And now you see that it's impacting your relationship or going into a relationship, not even wanting to get into a relationship. And so we tackle those kind of topics with our coaching agency, and we focus on those women only for our coaching agency. And that's not all inclusive because I do have men that schedule with me. I do, believe it or not. I actually have one today, but our main focus is on women. And then with our consulting business, we specifically work with small businesses in helping bridge that gap between small business or between business and mental health, because most small businesses don't have the capacity, they don't have the money as much large business to have EAP programs. And so with our consulting business, what we do is provide provide workshops and trainings related to mental health in the small business space. So hit that share button and we're going to get started here. I think we got our audience, and so we're going to get going. Let me pull up Facebook because I want to make sure I can see comments. This thing always gives me trouble in seeing comments. It always does, y'all. I'm sorry. I apologize. I always go back. And check my comments. But thank you for being here. So, can a relationship survive? Can it survive mental illness? Well, let's start off by talking about this because I think this is probably a better place to start. Can a relationship survive mental illness? Long story short, Absolutely. A relationship can survive mental illness. But let's break down, and we did a little bit yesterday breaking down exactly what mental illness is and what mental health is, because sometimes we get those crossed up. We do sometimes we get those crossed up. So let's go back and define exactly what mental illness is. So according to I believe, I forgot what resources was, Mental Health America, I think it was, that gave me this definition, is mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in emotions, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of all of those, or any of those at any point of time. And it also is associated with distress or problem functioning with your social life, your work life, or your family life, or family activities. Now, determines whether or not you have a mental illness is whether or not you actually are impacted in one of those three areas. Like, you can be struggling, or you could have some stuff going on and not have a diagnosed mental illness. But if it's impacting your family life, your social life, your work life, then chances are you may have a mental illness that is diagnosable. And mental illnesses have to be diagnosed. Now, I know a lot of us are like, "Oh, I'm just depressed. I'm depressed." You can't diagnose yourself. You can't diagnose yourself. So mental illnesses are usually diagnosed by a medical professional or a mental health professional. So you can't go around saying I'm depressed, and I mean, you can say that. You may feel, well, we say we may feel depressed, we may feel sadness, we may feel loneliness, like we can feel these things, but you can't diagnose yourself. Like, you can't go around diagnosing yourself and treating yourself. Like, that ain't how that work. That ain't how that work. That's not how that work. You Google, and they may tell you some symptoms and all that stuff, and that's good, but you need a mental health professional or a medical health professional to diagnose a mental illness. So, can a relationship survive mental illness? I think I started off by saying this, that over 50 million people are experiencing some type of mental illness. 50 million. That's 50 million people, which means at the minimum, there's 50 million people that are impacted by a mental illness. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, everybody has some kind of relationship with someone. Like, we're not on this earth alone, right? We're not on this earth alone. So if those 50 million people have a mental health diagnosis, a mental illness diagnosis, then that means that the people that are connected to them are also impacted by their diagnosis. Now, what we don't talk about with mental illness is that mental illness is actually on a spectrum. So you may have some that, is severe, and then you may have some that are at the opposite end of the spectrum that, they can go to work and they can live and every day and it's okay. But you have others that are at that other end of the spectrum where they may need to be in a mental hospital. So mental illness is on a spectrum. Can a relationship survive mental illness? Absolutely. But I feel like there are some tools that they need to have in order to be prepared to survive that relationship or to have a healthy relationship. And I also think it depends on the diagnosis. Now, I know people who were diagnosed with depression. Does it impact their relationship? Absolutely. When you don't want to get out of bed and you don't want to be around people and you just want to isolate, well, how does that work when you have children or when you have a family that you need to take care of? It don't necessarily work then. So what do you do? Like, how do you navigate that world when you have these symptoms going on that are severe, and you cannot, like, it's literally impacting your relationship? Like, how do you navigate that? Number one, you may want to grab a pen or pencil or something like that. Grab something to take notes. Number one, what are you telling them? Like, when y'all were dating, did you tell that person that you had a diagnosis? Like, I don't believe relationships work on the basis of dishonesty. Like, it just don't work. Like, you have to actually get to the point. And I'm not saying you have to tell them up front, because you don't. Like, that's your prerogative of whether or not you want to tell them. That's absolutely your prerogative. But once a relationship progresses to the point to where, hey, we exclusive, we dating, it's just us, that person needs to know a little bit about what you've been diagnosed, so that you're not answering their phone calls because you don't want to answer phone calls, and you isolating, and they don't know what's going on, and they're concerned and worried about you, and you're just going through a depressive episode. Or one minute they see you and you all up, and you on top of the world, and then the next minute you can't function. Like, that person needs to be aware of where you are in your mental health journey. That's a part of of the foundation of a relationship, which is integrity, which is honesty, which is communication. And if that person cannot handle where you are, if they cannot handle your illness, if they can't handle that, then they probably not the person that you want to be with. Let's just really be honest. They're probably not that person that you want to be with, but they deserve the right to know where you are so that they can evaluate. But if you hiding and trying to cover up, where you are, if you're trying to, that it's not going to work. So you have to be honest about where you are, and you have to communicate with that person about what you're struggling with. And when you're dating, you need to do that because you want to see their reaction. Okay, that's number one. Then some other things you want to look for is how supportive are they? Now, you don't want somebody that's going to be your parent and have to take care of you and all that. Like, that's not what this is. Like, we're not, as with a mental illness, I hope that you are getting treated by either a doctor or a therapist or you're getting treated somewhere, because it is not your partner's responsibility to treat you. It ain't their responsibility to take up the slack for your, like, it's just not their responsibility. Now, you guys can have that understanding, like, this is what it looks like when I'm in a depressive episode, and this is what, this is what I need, or this is what it looked like when I'm anxious. Like, if you see me worrying a lot, or if you see me being overbearing, or this is what I need you to do. And that's what good therapy would teach you. Good therapy will teach you the tools of how to communicate where you are in your walk, your healing journey. And I hope you are on a healing journey, because you should be on a healing journey, or else you might not need to be in a relationship. But that's another story for another day. But that person needs to know where you are in your healing journey so they can know how to support you. And if they're not there to support you, then the relationship absolutely is not going to survive. Because you can't hide what you're going through. Just like if it was a medical illness, you can't hide that. You can't pretend to be something around this person that you're absolutely not, or you can't hide the struggle. You just can't hide that. So the person needs to know where you are. And none of this is in my notes. It's like, let me get back on my notes. So number one, have that communication open. Like, let them know where you are. And then number two, can that person support where you are? So a relationship can absolutely survive mental illness, but only when the foundation is based on honesty. Only when you're communicating where you are, only if they're able to come alongside of you and support you without being your parent, without taking on, a rescue, because there are some people out there that like to rescue, people that are, broken or healing, whichever way you want to look at it. There are some people that like to rescue and take on projects and be Superman or Superwoman, and I can fix them, and if I just love them enough. No, that ain't how that works. And if you are the person that are in a relationship with someone who has a mental illness, you're not their rescuer. You're not the person that can save them. That's not your role. And if you go into that relationship looking at it like, I can, if I love them enough, or if I do this enough, then I can help them. I can help them overcome this. I can love them out of this. No. You're already setting yourself up for an unhealthy relationship. That's already the wrong way you can support them. You can come alongside of them. You can encourage them, but you cannot rescue them. You are not their savior. There's only one savior, and you are not it. So you shouldn't be looking for projects to fix inside of a relationship. And if you are the one struggling with mental illness, you shouldn't be the project that somebody has to come along and rescue. Because that means that, my friend, you're not healing. You're not in your healing journey. We don't look for people to rescue us. That's not their job. It's not their role. So, long story short, I'm up under my minutes, 15 minutes. A relationship can survive, but you have to be healthy enough to communicate where you are, and that other person has to be willing to support you without trying to rescue you. And mental illness is on a continuum. There are some that are severe, and there are some that are not. There are some relationships that have some people who have severe mental illnesses, such as, bipolar disorder. And we didn't even talk about personality disorders, because we'll get into talking about personality disorders and what that looks like in relationship. And if you don't know what personality disorders are, we're talking about bipolar at that point. We're talking about narcissism, because all of those look different in a relationship. And most of those relationships are not going to be healthy relationships. I'm just going to go and put that caveat out there now. If you are in a relationship with someone with a personality disorder, it's going to be a long road for you. It's going to be a long road for you. Let's just really be honest. It's going to be a long road, especially if that person is not aware and they're not walking through their own healing journey, and they're not, with a counselor. It's just going to be a long road, and that relationship is going to be like this, a roller coaster, up and down, up and down. But we'll get there. I think next week we'll talk a little bit about PTSD. PTSD is not a personality disorder. It's actually falls up under depression, and it's related to trauma and all of that. But that looks different in a relationship. If you have a person who is recovering from trauma, or who have gone through trauma, that's going to show up in that relationship. It's going to show up in how they interact with you, and whether or not the relationship survives is going to be totally up to you. Now, the person has to do their work, but there's some parts of that, especially if you want the relationship to survive, is you guys doing the work together. So, okay, I think that is it, because I can keep going on and on. But if I keep going on, I'm going to cross over into some stuff that I'm supposed to talk about tomorrow. So come back tomorrow and we'll keep talking about mental health and what it looks like inside of a relationship. But a relationship can survive, but any relationship can survive as long as it's based off of the right foundation, and you guys are working towards getting the tools that you need in order for it to survive. Okay, I love you guys. I do have a free resource that I have available called 5 Myths of Difficult Relationships. And a mental illness inside of a relationship can be characterized, it can be characterized as a difficult relationship depending on what the diagnosis is. But I do have a free resource, 5 Myths of Difficult Relationships. If you are on IG, hey IG, y'all can go to my profile and click on that website link. It'll take you to my website, and on there you will see different links. And that's not the only resource that I have on there, but that is the one that I'm pushing right now, because it is the one that's most, all of it's relevant. Let's just really be honest. When it comes down to relationships, you can never, that stuff never gets old. But I have a quiz on there you can find. It's a free quiz where you walks you through what kind of partner you are in your relationship. And then there's the 5 myths of difficult relationship that's there too. So you go to my profile, click on there, and you will see it, and you just download it. It come right to your mailbox. No hassle, no nothing. It's right there. You don't have to come and message me about it unless you want to. I do take messages, and I am taking one-on-one clients and offering free discovery calls as well. For Facebook, it should be pinned right below. Let me check, because it should be pinned right below here. Y'all let me know if you see it. If not, then what I'll do is I'll go back and post it so that you'll be able to see it. But yeah, it's pinned. I see it right here. It's a pinned comment. You should see 5 myths of difficult relationships. You click on that link, it'll take you right there. You download, is instant. You don't have to worry, it'll come straight to your mailbox. And at any time, if you guys have any questions, feel free to message me. It's hard for, I'm still trying to work. I can see your comments, but I'm still trying to work on this Facebook thing and seeing people's comments, because for some reason, it just don't want to cooperate. But that's all right. We're going to work around that. I'm going to go back and check to see your comment. And if you have any questions, I'll make sure to answer them. I love you guys so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, 12 noon, where we tackle hard topics with simple solutions. I love you. See you tomorrow. Bye.